Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs of society. I can't wait till what the liberals call us next. But welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network and around the world on Al Gore's amazing internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, AM, FM 24/7, Leading Edge Radio Network, and now you can see us on the AUN TV network in California. With Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader.
It's my honor, listeners, to welcome Elon Berman to the Conservative Commandos radio show. He's the Senior Vice President of the American Foreign Policy Council in Washington, D.C., an expert on regional security in the Middle East, Central Asia, and the Russian Federation. He has consulted for both the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and the U.S. Department of Defense, and he's provided assistance on foreign policy and national security issues to a range of governmental agencies and congressional offices. He's been called one of America's leading experts on the Middle East and Iran by CNN. Elon Berman, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, great to be here.
Well, we're really honored to have you with us, and the topic couldn't be more important. It's the fight against terror. You say in your article, which you co-wrote with Chloe Thompson at USA Today, you write that the fight against terror is entering a new phase, and it's still just as vital. Tell us about your article.
Sure. Well, I think, as we move further and further away from the tragic events of September 11th, we've externalized what we now call the war on terror. We've fought terrorist elements in the Middle East. We've fought them in North Africa. But increasingly, the urgency of the conflict itself has sort of receded from the headlines, right? Nothing succeeds like success, and the U.S. looks like it's winning, particularly in the context of the fight against the Islamic State. Over the last year, the United States and its coalition partners have made major gains in Iraq and Syria, and they've really dismantled the ISIS caliphate. But we have the tendency, because it looks like we're winning, to really take our eyes off the ball. And I would argue this is a huge mistake, because the terrain and the battlefield is really shifting in the conflict in a couple ways. First of all, ISIS is not the only game in town, and we have focused so heavily on ISIS that we really have ignored other threats, including, chief among them, Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was the ideological progenitor of ISIS, and it's still around. In fact, because we've spent so much time focusing on ISIS, we really haven't watched what Al-Qaeda has been doing. And the organization now controls more territory than it ever has in its history since the late 1970s, early 1980s. And it's increasingly active in places like the Southern Gulf. It's increasingly active in places like North Africa. So this is a real concern. The other concern is that even though the Islamic State has declined in terms of the territory it holds, its message is still very appealing, and it's very radical. And so as the coalition has pushed up against ISIS in Iraq and Syria, ISIS has really changed its message. And it's no longer calling for radicals to mobilize and travel to the Middle East to join the fight, but rather to conduct jihad in place, to essentially conduct local insurgencies in the places that they are. And the deadly outcome of that call has been seen over the last few months in places like Paris, France, in Germany, even in Sweden. So what I think we're seeing is that as ISIS declines, these local problems become more acute, as do other competitors as well.
Yeah, and I think you make an important point, because we do get lost in all this focus on North Korea and China, and we haven't heard as much as we would like to about what's going on in the Middle East in the regular news cycle of late. And so I think you make a very good point. I'd like to talk a little bit about Afghanistan. We haven't been talking much in the regular news cycle about what's going on in Afghanistan, and yet that used to be the only thing we talked about. And of course, that was back in the immediate aftermath of 9/11 and the work that was done to deal with Al-Qaeda in reaction to that incident. So what can you tell us about Afghanistan today?
Well, sure. And I think you're absolutely right. Afghanistan was the first front in the war on terror, and it's still, if not the most important one, certainly one of the most important. And right now in Afghanistan, there isn't just one war going on. There's at least two. There's a conflict that's taking place between the Afghan government and the Taliban, which we had beaten into submission, beaten into exile, but has experienced a resurgence over the last 2-3 years. And there's also an internal jihadist war that's taking place between the Taliban, which is the local extremist outfit, and elements of the Islamic State, which have begun to move into Afghan territory to try to capture the narrative and to capture territory as well. So these two conflicts, they're layered on top of one another, but they make Afghanistan an enormously volatile place.
Yeah, and I guess Afghanistan is not the only place we should be looking at, because I guess there's Boko Haram, and you say that that's in Africa, right? And then we've also got Indonesia to be concerned about. Tell us about these two areas.
Right. Well, so what we've seen happen over the last 6 to 8 months or so is, as the Islamic State has declined, groups that previously pledged allegiance to ISIS, groups like Boko Haram in Nigeria, radical groups, radical elements in Indonesia and other places in Southeast Asia, they have increasingly gone their own way. They have, everyone loves a winner, nobody likes a loser. And so as the Islamic State has declined, all of these groups have essentially unhitched themselves from ISIS and have decided to strike out on their own. They were pre-existing. They existed before ISIS came along, and they exist now. And so what you're seeing is maybe a collapse of the caliphate in the Middle East, but a flare-up of these local insurgencies in places like Southeast Asia, in places like Central Africa, as these groups go their own way.
And I think also there are attempts being made here in the United States for terror, and yet we know very little bit about them, largely because they've been thwarted. And I think we need to talk about that too, because we remember 9/11, especially if you live on the East Coast like I do. We remember the bombing of the Boston Marathon, but we don't hear about, and therefore don't think about, all the current attempts that are actually thwarted. And you've actually cited one that was July 4th parade in Cleveland, Ohio. Tell us about that.
Right. So there was an attack, a planned attack, suicide bombing attack that was thankfully thwarted by law enforcement authorities. And what was, I think, very interesting about this wasn't actually an ISIS attack. We've gotten so used to thinking about ISIS as being the engine for radicalization and the engine for mobilization. This was actually an individual who had pledged allegiance to Al-Qaeda. Sort of going back to my earlier point that Al-Qaeda is still relevant and it still has the power to mobilize. But also the way he radicalized was, I think, very significant, because the great equalizer and the great complicating factor in our counterterrorism efforts is the fact that with the internet, with social media, the radical message that's propounded by Al-Qaeda or by groups like ISIS is increasingly prevalent. You don't have to access a whole network in order to be radicalized. You can be self-radicalized based upon the content that you see on the internet, what you listen to, what you watch. And this is, I think, a much more challenging environment for our law enforcement.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. And I think it's important for us to realize that this may be a bell that cannot be unrung. You know, in this 24-hour news cycle, this age of the internet, this stuff is out there, and you can't pull it back. You can't erase it from history. You can't erase it from the internet. This may be something we just need to contend with onward into the future, and therefore we need to pull together as the Western world, so to speak, and cooperate with one another on this. Do you have ideas about that?
No, I think that's absolutely right. And what we've seen over the last year and a half in terms of both Western nations and also Middle Eastern nations banding together to fight a common foe in ISIS, in the Islamic State's caliphate, is, I think, exactly the model to look at. There should be much broader efforts at international consensus about groups that are bad, groups that are radical, groups that have no space. But look, you can't fight something with nothing. So it's not just enough to fight these guys militarily. what you really need is you need a countervailing narrative. You need Islamic countries who think differently, who organize differently, countries like Morocco and Indonesia and Jordan, to really step up the intellectual game and to provide an antidote, an alternative pathway for people who are listening to ISIS ideology, Al-Qaeda ideology, to let them know that radicalization is not the only pathway that they can take. Because in that dialogue between Muslims, we in the West really don't have any standing, but the countries of the Muslim world have all the legitimacy that they need.
Listeners, we're speaking this segment with Ilan Berman, Senior Vice President at the American Foreign Policy Council. Ilan, we are not finished with you. We just have to identify the station. I hope you'll hold on for just a minute.
Sure.
Listeners, we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet. And now you can watch our TV show with the AUN TV network.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America, where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast of our show, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or CCRS Network. Please like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Sharon Engel, our guest, is still with us. Please pick up the conversation.
It's my pleasure, Rick, to reintroduce Ilan Berman. Ilan Berman, who is the Senior Vice President of the American Foreign Policy Council in Washington, D.C., and an expert on regional security in the Middle East, Central America, and the Russian Federation. Ilan, it's been very interesting to hear that we haven't won that war. This is a long-standing war on terrorism, and we would think, by the way, that the media is not covering it, that somehow it's won, that we don't have a war going on anymore, and that Al-Qaeda is extinct. And actually, your article just points out that no, that really isn't the case at all.
No, I think that's right. And, we're in an era where the media cycle is enormously fast, and you almost forget how recently events happen, right? You have this welter of world events from North Korea to Russia to Iran. But the reality is that this is actually very natural. The old media saying is, if it bleeds, it leads. And the reason the war on terror has receded from the headlines is because it hasn't been bleeding. We've actually been doing a very good job in terms of counterterrorism, both at home and counterterrorism operations quietly with our allies overseas. But that doesn't mean that the danger is past. And the real worry that I and a lot of my colleagues have is this complacency. It's very easy to get lulled into this false sense of security that just because there hasn't been a major terrorist attack on U.S. soil, there isn't going to be. And factually, that's simply not correct, right? We need to remain vigilant.
Well, and what you pointed out in the interview with Anna and in your article is that Cleveland, Ohio, I wasn't thinking of Cleveland. We all know that there are populations in Michigan, but in Cleveland, it just makes it seem like every place in America is vulnerable.
Well, I think that's right. But, the silver lining in all this is that on balance, the Muslim communities in the United States are resilient. They're well integrated. They're really not prone to radicalization, not nearly to the extent that you see radicalization being a problem in places like France or Germany. That has a lot to do with our system and the inclusiveness of our system. But the diffuse nature by which Islamists and extremists now message radical elements like the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda or Boko Haram or what have you, the way they can reach out and touch vulnerable populations, including in the United States, is much more compelling because of the internet, because the internet has eliminated those distances. Social media has allowed them to have contact with these people in a way they haven't had before. So even our comparatively well-insulated communities are vulnerable to radicalization nonetheless.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are speaking with Ilan Berman. He's a Senior Vice President of the American Foreign Policy Council in Washington, D.C. Ilan, what can you tell us about this recent attack that took place in Toronto? It seems like down here I haven't seen a lot of coverage about it, number one. Number two, it did seem that ISIS made a claim that they're responsible. Number three, it doesn't seem like the Canadian government wants to say that, yes, this was a terrorist attack. And what can you tell us about what happened up there?
Right. So you're talking about what we call the Danforth shooting. It was a mass shooting that took place in a district of Toronto on July 22nd. I think there were 2 people that were killed, and there were something like 20 that were injured. And the shooter committed suicide after he had a shootout with Toronto police. So there's a lot of speculation that's been surrounding exactly what the particulars are. And this is speculation that, frankly, has been fueled by the Canadian government, because the Canadian government is in a very delicate position. The Canadian government is trying to position itself as a more tolerant counterpoint to the Trump administration, and has doubled down on this idea of very significant Muslim migration and immigration into Canada. And so there's a worry that the individual, his name was Faisal Hussein, that the individual was sort of connected with radicals or migrants. He was, I believe, of Pakistani origin, and he wasn't a migrant himself, but it does create greater speculation among the Canadian public about the prudence of what the Canadian government is doing, about whether this unfettered immigration is really as safe as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is talking about. Maybe it's not quite as safe as they think. And so this is something that the Canadian government, I think, is sort of touching very delicately. But there is at least circumstantial evidence that this is not just a one-off event, that this has ties to larger international terror.
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned the immigration aspect of this, because so many of us have been demanding secure the borders. And one of the reasons is because of this idea of security. And in your article, you mentioned that Europe's vulnerability stems from the large-scale migration from the Middle East and North Africa. Talk to us more about that. Are we in danger here, or do we have this under control? We don't feel like it's under control out here in the heartland of America, but maybe we are. You're the expert.
Well, I'd put it this way. We have it much more under control than the Europeans do. That doesn't mean that there isn't cause for concern on our part. But in Europe, what you're actually seeing, and to drill down a little bit, I think it's necessary to point out, this isn't just migration. This isn't just one migration wave. This is a couple of migration waves. There's a migration heading from the east heading to the west. That's a lot of displaced people with an inordinate number, percentage-wise, of single military-aged males that's coming from the Middle East, specifically from Syria, into Europe, and that causes all sorts of concerns and problems. We need to track them. We need to know who they are. European countries have been very permissive in allowing them to stay, but they've done a much poorer job at helping them to integrate. And then there's a second wave of migration, which is mostly driven by economics, which is heading from the south of the African continent to the north, trying to cross the Mediterranean and enter the Eurozone that way. And that's, although that includes Muslims, that's mostly driven by other concerns. That's mostly driven by people looking for economic opportunity. Europe, in its discussions of all this, has sort of smushed those two things together. And it's talking all about the need for a humanitarian response to migration. But the migration is taking very many forms. Some of it is legitimate, and some of it is potentially hazardous to Europe's health. And they're really not separating those issues out.
Well, unfortunately, we have to break now, Elon, and we have to end our discussion with you. But we do want our listeners to have an opportunity to follow you, read this article, and read others that you have done. Can you give us that information, please?
Sure, absolutely. So I work for the American Foreign Policy Council. You can see us online, visit us online at www.afpc.org. And there's a lot of content there relating to the work that we do on tracking extremist Islam and projects like the World Almanac of Islamism that I think your listeners will find very, very interesting.
Thank you so much, Elon Berman, for being our guest here on Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you.
And we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. We'll be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty HealthShare. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty HealthShare, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty HealthShare.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty HealthShare has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty HealthShare is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
I'm George Landreth, and of course, this is the place the newsmakers go to be heard. We are excited about our next guest, but before I introduce him, I want to remind you, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of the show today, or if you want more information, check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com, and, we're always there. The Conservative Commandos are, in fact, everywhere. So we have with us today a real expert on a topic that most people don't know a lot about. Now, this is a friend of mine. He's a fellow he's a Saudi scholar. He's a writer. He's an expert. He understands Saudi political affairs. He understands terrorism, Islamic movements, the Wahhabi branch of Islam, Saudi political history, Saudi American relations, and the Al Saud family as well. He's been a strong critic of what's going on in Saudi Arabia, and he's been educated here in the United States. He's been, as an example, he's spoken at Princeton, at the Hudson Institute. You may have seen him on CBS, NBC, PBS, Fox News. You probably read his stuff in the Washington Post or also the Associated Press. He like the Conservative Commandos is everywhere. But at any rate, so with that, I'm very pleased to welcome Ali Al-Ahmad to the Conservative Commandos. Ali, welcome.
Yeah, good evening. Welcome to you and to all the conservatives in the United States.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk to you about what we've been seeing going on in Saudi Arabia, because ostensibly they're considered an ally of the United States, but I think oftentimes they're not actually a real good ally, and I think sometimes they do things that really harm American interests. I know you've been a critic, so I figure you probably know the answer to that question a lot more deeply than I do. Mine's a casual observation. Yours will be a scholarly discussion. So what say you?
Well, the relationship between the Saudi Arabia and the United States is a relationship between the monarchy, really, not the country, and the United States government and elites. So, and this relationship is one of the oddest relationships in the world, maybe in history, because it is between a government that is that runs on the principle of the people, by the people, for the people, with a monarchy that says by the monarchy, for the monarchy, of the monarchy. So and only. So that is it's counterintuitive because the United States was built on running itself. The American Revolution, removed an absolute monarchy from the United States. And I took some time in myself and went to Boston and to the harbor and walked the Freedom Trail. So it is that relationship that it doesn't make any sense, because what are you doing is you're making the United States, a republic, become the #1 defender of the largest absolute monarchy in the world, a monarchy that has harmed its people and the region, the Middle East, and the United States. As an example, September 11 is just the most obvious example, but other harm to the United States is probably, we can sit here for days and talk about that. But so that relationship is really odd. It's not a relationship based on values even or interest, because some interest has been had for the United States or some people in the United States, definitely. But is it for the U.S. as a nation? I doubt it, because the U.S. has been involved in conflict in the Middle East as a result of the Saudi monarchy either egging the United States on to wage war or get into conflict without really any real outcome. I can give you, for example, people talk about the Iraq invasion. The Iraq invasion was became disaster in many parts because of the Saudi involvement in funding and encouraging the terrorist attacks for over 10 years in Iraq that killed many Americans. In fact, many Americans who were killed in Iraq were killed by Saudi suicide bombers, and the money came from the Saudi Arabia, and the US and the Saudi government knew about this, and they didn't do anything. I wrote reports about it, and instead of being thanked by American officials, I was yelled at because I exposed the Saudi government role in terrorist attacks in Iraq against the U.S. forces.
Truth can be a pesky thing sometimes.
It is.
Now, I assume this means you're not particularly welcomed in Saudi Arabia.
No, I'm not. In fact, in 2004, and attempting to renew my passport, the Saudi embassy at the time run by Bandar bin Sultan, and Adil Jubair was in the embassy. They took away my passport, and later on they withdrew my nationality. Although I am and my ancestors are part of the Arabian Peninsula thousands of years back, before the Al Saud, who came in the past maybe 500 years from Turkey, most likely. So still they withdrew my nationality without informing me even. I just found out by accident.
Wow.
And I've been a target, like you saw in the AP story last week, being hacked. I've been a target of being, Jamal Khashoggi. That could have been me if I was so gullible.
Right. Now, and that's an interesting segue for us, because I've read stories, and I've heard some people say, well, Jamal, Khashoggi wasn't really a good guy, so we don't care. And I find that answer troubling for this reason. I don't know him, so I don't know if he's a good guy or not. But we have a process in the civilized world. It's not just the United States. You go to any country that proclaims itself as a civilized country, you have a process by which people who've done something wrong are dealt with. And it involves arresting them, and then you try them, they have a trial, they're punished accordingly. What you don't do is trick them into showing up at a consulate and then, essentially attack them and torture them and then cut them up into small pieces and dispose of their body in a garden somewhere. That's just not how it's done. Even if he were a mass murderer, that's not how we do that. And I'm not saying he was a mass murderer at all. I'm just saying, but even if he were that, so my point is, as a conservative, I look at that and I say, that tells me that Saudi Arabia isn't serious about things like human rights. So maybe you can tell us, we've got about 2 minutes in this segment, so just get us started. We'll pick it up after that. I think human rights is a good place to go, though.
The human rights, you cannot have human rights when you have an absolute monarchy. These things don't go together. As long as you have an absolute ruler, either a monarch that sees himself endowed to rule and to own the land and the people, just like the Al Saud ruling family thinks of itself, or any other absolute ruler. It could be even a secular one. You can't have human rights when there is not a good despotic ruler. This is a myth that, as much as the dragons exist. So this is number one. Number two, Saudi Arabia has never had a good human right record. I think the problem has been is that there has been greater silence in the West. In my years of working with and talking and meeting with governments in the West, they have never, and I tried, I've never called in Saudi Arabia, for example, you cannot find a single statement to allow women to vote or to allow women to drive. They have never called on Saudi Arabia. Even in these useless UN meetings in Geneva, they have not said, oh, we call on the Saudi government to allow women to drive or to allow women to be human being, because the legal status of women in Saudi Arabia is very much like a pet that you own. You can decide whatever they do, and it's very much, if you put the status of a pet in the United States and a woman, it's the same thing. And the U.S. government acknowledges that actually in its travel section. It says women are property of their male guardians, and that's true. That is the reality. So
we're up against the clock, so I want to continue this conversation.
Khashoggi, just to say that Khashoggi was not an angel, but killing him this way is absolute crime. And no matter who, even Jeffrey Dahmer should not be killed and this way.
Absolutely. We're up against the clock, so we'll finish or we'll continue this conversation on the other side. Coming to you from across the Conservative Commandos radio network, all across this great nation. We're also coming to you on the AUN TV network in California and on Al Gore's amazing internet all over the world. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right.
The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The secret war is yours, free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
My health care costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to health care or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
Together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landreth. I want to remind you that you can always check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com, get more information. Now, we have been talking with a friend of mine and a real, just knowledgeable scholar and expert. His name is Ali Al-Ahmed, and he is he's somebody that the Saudis don't like because he speaks the truth, and that's not popular there. But they've hacked his computer. They've, tried to take away his citizenship and make it so he can't travel, those kinds of things. But the bottom line is, we've been talking with him about what's been going on in Saudi Arabia. And so before the break, Ali, we had to cut short on that. We were talking about human rights. I want to make sure we got a chance to finish that. And then I thought if we can get into questions like, what should America's relationship with Saudi Arabia look like? Because obviously the answer isn't necessarily war, but we don't also have to pretend like they're our best friends. And sometimes I feel like the relationship, you see various presidents hugging, the crown prince or the king or acting like they're great buddies, and I kind of scratch my head and go, really? So let's pick up there and fill us in on what's really happening. Because an example also would be, we had the Crown Prince in America in the last few months, and I thought it was kind of a charm offensive. He was trying to convince us that he was this great reformer. And then this event with in Turkey occurs, and it's pretty clear to me that's not the actions of a reformer. And now we see they're talking about prosecuting these guys. I think you should tell us a little bit about why that's all a big sham. But anyhow, I've given you a lot of things to talk about, but let's carry on from there.
Yes, thank you. I will try to be as brief as possible. I think the issue of coming and indicting few people with the crime of murdering Jamal Khashoggi, it might appear to be on the surface is a good thing, but one must realize this sentence, even if these people were sentenced to death, this will not happen tomorrow, or even it's going to take 18 years, because Mr. Khashoggi's all children must approve that sentence, and they should not object to it. And if he has a newborn coming a few months, as I heard, so that's going to take at least 18 years before anybody is actually executed. That's number one. Number two is the Saudi court system is so backward. It's an apartheid system. Imagine if the United States court system was only limited to white people who are Protestant. No Catholics, no blacks, no women, and no Hispanic people are allowed. Saudi court system is like that. Only Wahhabis from the central region of Saudi Arabia. If you are a Shia Arab, you are out of luck. You cannot work in the court system or in the prosecutor's office. If you are a woman, you are out. If you are black, you are out. And if you are not a Wahhabi, if you're a secular, if you're somebody who do not follow religiously, you cannot be part of the prosecutor's office nor the court system. No judge can be from the majority of the population. So, and the third thing is the court system in Saudi Arabia and the prosecutor's office are officials of the government, and they do everything. They're not independent. That the officer of the state tells them to do. So it is nothing that you cannot accept. It does not meet international standards. That's why it's laughable to hold anybody, try somebody in that country. They should be outside, not even Turkey, should be outside somewhere in The Hague. Secondly, what U.S. can do is, this is a great opportunity. And, you know, I know some people say, oh, Trump has been doing bad. I think he's doing better than the American presidents before him. This is the first time an American government has sanctioned Saudi officials. And they published their name today, 17 of them. So this is the first time. This is the first American president who said we'll punish those people who committed this crime. None of these American presidents who said we are for human rights, it's like Obama or the Carter, ever said something like that. Notice, Mr. Obama had said nothing about the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and the Saudi actions in Yemen, which he actually supported and encouraged. So you are looking at an opportunity here. And I hope Mr. Trump will hear this to say, this is an opportunity to show Mr. Trump's detractors that he is the one who can bring change to Saudi Arabia by forcing and talking, at least, using his power to push the Saudis to actually to end this apartheid look-alike in terms of the court system, in the military, and across the Saudi government, which is also an apartheid regime because it excludes the majority of the population, the tribes, the Shia, the women, and the people of color or blacks in our country and other other parts. Human rights cannot be had when you have one-man rule. The population, all of it must come together and be part of the system in order to have better human rights. You cannot have a perfect system, but at least it will be much better than having the blue blood Al Saud regime or family controlling every aspect of the government.
Yeah. Now, one thing I think is interesting is I suspect that this trial would be a show trial, and it's designed probably to blame someone else.
Yes.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Crown Prince's personal guards were the ones who did this, which
Yes.
means he sent them. But I noticed he's not on trial. So it seems to me that this is just kind of a show trial to blame someone else for his actions, his orders. And I don't know, that strikes me as not very honest either. And you've already described that these judges will basically be operatives of
They are.
family.
They said themselves that we do whatever what they call the ruler, the caretaker of that's how they call it in Saudi Arabia. Whatever he wants, we'll do. It doesn't matter. And the king in Saudi Arabia is like a god. Whatever he says is law, and he can do anything he wants. He can ban or allow anything. And the system, because it's an absolute, it's maybe ultra absolute monarchy. Everything he does and says is the law of the land.
Wow. So, if you were to sit down and advise Donald Trump, what would you? I mean, you've said he's done some good things. What would be some more things you'd say? President Trump, if you want to make a real difference, here's some more things you could do. What would you tell him?
I would say, Mr. President, you said, you talked about, the American who were. Somebody called deplorable, the people. This is an opportunity to push for a people government in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia. Your ancestors, your forefathers in this land were once ruled by an absolute monarch from London. And your forefathers actually took to arms and removed that monarchy and built a republic that became started changing human history. The American Revolution, look at it, it changed human history. This is when humans turned from nothing to getting to the moon and to Mars. All or most of the human achievements in terms of science and medical, and it happened in this country. Why? Because of that American Revolution. Then it started the French Revolution. Then the collapse of the British Empire, where nation states were built, and modern age came because of the American Revolution, because of these people in Faneuil Hall in Boston, and because of those people who refused to pay taxes to an absolute monarch. This is an opportunity to build something like that in our part of the world. We don't need bombs or flight. just take away the lifeline from the Saudis. Don't sell them bombs, sell them books and bread and wheat, because our people need to eat and need to get medication, and America has a lot of it. And you can make you still can make money building schools and hospitals and roads and communications. You don't have to sell bombs to get paid, and cars and so on. So this is an opportunity to build something, not only in terms of economic. The Saudis are not. We are not going to stop selling oil to you if we are a republic. Monarchy should be rethought, and hopefully we can get American support. The French supported you. Please support us.
I think that's a good message. Now, very quickly, how can people follow your work? Whether it's Twitter or online, where can they learn more about the things that you're doing?
Yeah, they can Google me, and they can visit the gulfinstitute.org website. And I do have a Twitter account, but Twitter has been doing what it has done to many conservatives by shadow ban and killed one of my popular accounts in Arabic. So we're still having that fight with Twitter. So unfortunately, they are also close to the Saudis. And this is one of the dangers, that the Saudis are controlling American entities and making them do things that are un-American.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much, Ali. This has been very enlightening, very educational, and it's just been great to have you on the show. I want to also let our listeners know, of course, that we're coming to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network all across this great nation, broadcast from one coast to the other, and of course carried on Al Gore's amazing internet and on the AUN TV network in California, and soon in Nevada as well. Don't go away. We will be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasser Sheikh. and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcast of our shows, please check out our websites, CCRShow.com. That's CCRShow.com for the radio version, and the television version can be seen at ConservativeCommandosRadioshow.com. Now, sir, our first guest is with us. Please make her feel welcome.
Thank you, Rick. We have Brigitte Gabriel. She's a terrorism expert and the chairman of Act for America, the largest national security grassroots organization in the United States. She started Act for America, which is now approaching 1 million members, in an effort to protect the citizens of the United States from the horrors she experienced as a girl. She's a celebrated author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, Because They Hate, A Survivor of Islamic Terror Warns America, and They Must Be Stopped, Why We Must Defeat Radical Islam and How We Do It. Her latest book, Rise, In Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom, is one we're going to be talking about today, and especially how terrorists use technology to weaponize the internet. Brigitte, welcome back to the Conserve Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Rick and Dr. Nestor. I'm delighted to be back with you.
Well, thank you. Well, you know what? Let's let our listeners know a little bit about what exactly, is Act for America. How did you sort of begin doing it? And second part of that is describe your journey, from when you were young and your journey to the United States. I know that's 3 parts of that question, but give our audience a sense of why Act for America. How did it begin?
Well, I started to Act for America after the attacks of 9/11 because the attacks of 9/11 affected me personally on an emotional level, because my 9/11 happened to me in Lebanon in 1975 when radical Islamists blew up my home, bringing it down, burying me under the rubble wounded. I ended up in a hospital for 2.5 months and later ended up living in a bomb shelter underground in an 8x10 room without electricity, without water, and very little food. And that's where I lived for the next 7 years of my life, robbed of my youth from the age of 10 till the age of 17. So when I immigrated to the United States, I thought I left all that behind me. I came here in 1989, and I thought, now I'm going to live and work in America and build the American dream. 9/11, 2001, when the World Trade Center was attacked, was shocked me into reality to realize that the creaties that I have left behind are now here in America. And so I laid on my couch thinking, what can I do to make a difference? And I decided that I want to educate millions of uninformed Americans about the threat of radical Islam to world peace and our national security. And I started Act for America, and I'm proud to tell you that today we are 1 million members. We have chapters nationwide. We have over 20,000 activists nationwide. We have helped pass 100 bills on the federal level as well as the state level to protect America. So Act for America is the largest national security organization in the U.S. focused on protecting America from all threats, foreign and domestic. When I started Act for America, the only threat to the United States at that time, the major threat, was radical Islamic terrorism. Today, we have Antifa, we have Black Lives Matter, we have MS-13 gangs, we have lawlessness at our borders. So the national security threat, national security encompasses all these things, and that's what Act for America focuses on.
Good, good. Now, one of the things from your book you wrote, and I'm taking it from that, the internet has transcended borders, language, culture. It's opened a can of worms with potentially deadly consequences. You say, welcome to the 21st century, where the world is smaller, everything is faster, easier, and more dangerous than ever. Give our audience a sense that how has this technology, although there's greatness in technology, but technology can also be used for evil. So how is it that these domestic terror groups, international terrorist groups, Islamists, how are they utilizing, this new technology, the internet, in terms of, trying to destabilize the United States and commit terror acts?
Well, while we in America invented the internet, basically, to improve the military's lives, our lives, and later now all our lives. I mean, we use the internet to learn. You want to research anything, you don't have to sit in the library and go through, piles of books of encyclopedia. You can literally go to Google, type in a name, and you get 60,000 pages on the internet regarding any topic. But what perfected the use of the internet for evil actually started with Al-Qaeda. When we started seeing Al-Qaeda use the internet, remember their internet publication when they started literally training Al-Qaeda members around the world on how to make bombs in their mother's kitchen. And then later on, we saw ISIS take the use of the internet to a whole different level. When ISIS started training and recruiting radicals to join the Islamic Caliphate or the Islamic State in Syria from all around the world. Today, ISIS, while they have lost their geographical territory, today ISIS maintain complete operation. Their internet caliphate is up and thriving worldwide, operating in multiple languages. They have no less than sites operated in 35 languages around the globe. And what they are focusing on is basically recruiting people from the West right now who live in Western nations, who look blended in the West, to basically recruit within their own population and even carry terrorist attacks within these Western countries. And that's where we saw the internet really be used as a tool for evil, to spreading evil and killing around the world.
Brigitte, this is the thing that I don't understand. You also write in your book on page 44 that in the last half of 2016, Twitter suspended nearly 377,000 accounts that were promoting terrorist-related content. Here's my question. Is that just a drop in the bucket? I mean, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. Why is it that these companies, these mega tech, companies, information technology companies, why when they see content like this, why don't they shut it down immediately? Are they doing that, or is it taking people like yourselves and others to bring, light on the subject?
There are too many to keep tracks of. I mean, look, we mentioned just over 300,000, and thank you for bringing that up. The weaponizing of the internet is so important that in my book, Rise, I dedicate a whole chapter to weaponizing the internet because it has become such an important part in how it is being used against us. So, yeah, and they are using, WhatsApp, Twitter, Google, social media, Facebook. I mean, Instagram. It's incredible what they have been able to use utilizing the internet. But Twitter, like I mentioned, over 300,000 pages, and those are the ones that we know of, that we have tracked. We can't even know how many they have now. By the time we learn about one and we shut it down, another 10 pop up to replace them. So it is a continuous struggle and a chase to try to track these sites down. And while Twitter is basically coming down hard on conservatives in the United States and being very busy monitoring conservative voices in the United States, trying to shut them down, they are not as carefully monitoring Islamic terrorist websites and ISIS websites. So look, you've got people like Farrakhan, for example, who calls Jews termites. He is not banned from Twitter, yet conservative voices are banned from Twitter. And so this is exactly why, because the left is not being really careful on how they go after people who are suspected of promoting radical Islamic views on Twitter. This is why you are seeing those voices taking traction and finding traction within communities, within student groups, within disenfranchised youth in America who are looking for something to get involved in, and that's how they are being recruited on the internet.
Well, the other question I have to ask you then is, what are some of the steps that say that the average American can sort of do to sort of, combat or to stay vigilant? How does your book address that?
Well, what makes my book unique is at the end of every chapter, no matter what I talk about, whether I'm talking about weaponizing the internet, whether I'm talking about the death of free speech, whether I'm talking about the indoctrination of our children in our public schools. You know, I have a chapter titled Operation Indoctrination. What makes my book Rise so unique is all books educate, but my book gives you at the end of every chapter, there's a section titled Rise Up and Act, where I give people tips and ideas as to what they can do to make a difference for the country. For example, in the internet, you know, you ask about simple things that we can do on the internet. If you are a user of Twitter, if you are a user of Facebook, if you have friends where you can notice that they are started becoming radicalized, saying things that they're not supposed to say, even expressing opinion that's borderline, that crosses the line from being just unhappy about a certain people or certain group of people to basically calling for killing them or violence against them. When you see somebody going down that road, especially if they are sympathizers to Islamic radicals or ISIS or people who say it is okay to go kill people because they deserve to die, when you notice these type of things, make sure you notify the authorities. Make sure you pick up the phone and call the FBI or call the Department of Homeland Security and give an anonymous tip, because then they can start monitoring that account, and they can monitor that account in ways where Twitter can get involved from behind the scenes and notice who they are linked to in other conversations that you are not privy to. This is how we can play our part as citizens in making sure our communities are safe, and those citizens who are starting to go down the wrong path are being exposed, monitored, sometimes arrested and blocked before they commit something.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Bridget Gabriel. She's a tourism expert and the chairman of Act for America. Bridget, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for us for just a few moments, please?
Sure.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Don't go away. We're talking about terrorists using technology to weaponize the internet. We will be right back.
General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and they fall for the right time. It's too late.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And I want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, in the Villages in Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California. And now you can see our show, if you're in Northern California, on the AUN television network. Our guest this segment is Brigitte Gabriel. She's a tourism expert and the chairman of Act for America, the largest national security grassroots organization with nearly 1 million members. Brigitte, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Oh, absolutely.
Your book, Rise, in Defense of the Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom, helps equip Americans to fight the efforts of the nation's enemies to undermine the U.S. culture at every level. Brigitte, earlier you were talking with Nasser, and you included, if I'm not mistaken, groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa with terrorist groups such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Was that a mistake, or is that something that I erroneously heard, or is that what you truly believe?
They are not on the same level. What I was talking about is, as the largest national security organization in the nation, when we were launched, the biggest threat to the United States at that time was from Islamic radicalism. Today, we have a domestic group, which I believe should be designated as terrorist group, like Antifa, who basically feel no problem in showing up to the streets, attacking American demonstrators, destroying property, showing up with machetes and brass knuckles. That is what I consider domestic through a terrorist group and a threat to the United States. Definitely not on the level of ISIS. Definitely not in the same category, but no less is a threat to our democracy and a threat to the safety of American citizens. Because when we have American citizens who feel justified in showing up and disrupting other Americans expressing their views, and even justifying the use of violence, and that includes attacking, shoving, burning, hitting, clubbing other American citizens, that is a threat to the safety of Americans, and that should not be allowed in America by any group, regardless of what their name is.
All right. Your book, Rise, in Defense of the Judeo-Christian Values and Freedoms. Brigitte Gabriel, why does it need defense? Why does the Judeo-Christian values and ethics and freedoms that we have had in this country, why does it need a defense now?
Well, we need to defend them because America as we know it is being transformed before our very eyes. The flag that once flew on every street corner is now considered a hate symbol on college campuses. Athletes who used to break out in tears of pride during the national anthem are now kneeling in protest. Patriotism is seen as hateful. Freedom of speech is being eliminated by the tyranny of tolerance. And our police are being targeted by criminals while the mainstream media victimizes their killers. Our public schools are used to promote Islamic propaganda inside the classroom, and Christmas is under assault. Our nation is at a crossroads of irreversible consequences, and the Judeo-Christian values it was founded upon are under attack both from abroad and from within. What most people don't realize is America was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Western civilization was founded on Judeo-Christian values. When we talk about freedom of speech in our country, most people don't realize that what makes freedom of speech so unique is it's where it came from. You know, in the Bible, and I hate to quote the Bible says, "Come, let's reason together." This is why in our culture, in our Western societies, we are so used to debating ideas. Actually, in Israel, in Orthodox schools, they debate the Bible 24 hours a day because we believe that being able to debate an idea is how you learn and you grow and you move forward and you become better by learning different ways to look at an idea. And that's where that principle in our Western civilization came from, the freedom of speech. This is why in America we believe that we can sit across from each other and passionately debate ideas, even though we disagree passionately with each other, yet respect each other's ability to express our opinion and agree to disagree. Right now, we are seeing that right, that freedom, that fundamental freedom that our founding fathers believed should be actually in our Constitution is right now under attack. So when I wrote my book, Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom, the book is not a religious book by any sort of imagination. The book is about American values that are being eroded right now, and those values are founded on Judeo-Christian foundation.
You know, Brigitte, when you talk about the death of free speech, that really rang with me. At least once a day, I say here on the Conservative Commandos radio show that our show is brought to you by the First Amendment and protected by the Second. I think that free speech is unique here in this country, where we are seeing in other supposed civil countries, such as in Canada, such as in Great Britain, that they don't have a First Amendment right of free speech. But what's troubling to me, Brigitte, is when you talk about the technology and the internet, places like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google will shut you down because of your free speech, because of my free speech, because of Nasser's free speech. You mentioned in your book, you tell people what to do, to rise up and act. What are you advising people to do to express and protect their First Amendment rights?
Well, right now, what we are doing is, as an organization, because individually right now, we're not going to be able to accomplish much. If we're going to accomplish anything, we have to do it collectively as a group. And this is why I encourage people to go to our website, actforamerica.org, and here's why. Because we are working with the President and members of Congress on passing, on intervening, and I don't want to say control free speech, but ensure that we in America have the freedom to express our opinion. Just as much as the government intervened when Microsoft had a monopoly on the internet and they were not allowing others to compete, this is where Congress intervened and changed the laws. So all companies like Apple and other internet companies, other computers were able to compete in the marketplace. Right now, with the power that companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Twitter has, even though they say that they are not there to monitor and control everybody's speech, this is not what they're doing right now. They are actually muzzling the voices of people like you and me who are speaking the truth, and the truth that is offensive to people like Facebook and Twitter. And this is exactly why we need to come together and pressure our government on basically intervening and making sure that these organizations, if they wish to continue operating in the market of free ideas, where everybody can express their ideas on their platform, they will be able to continue operating in our country and making money by allowing all of us to participate in sharing our ideas. And I'm afraid to tell you that we are at a point where it's only going to happen by Congress fighting back these leaders of these major corporations and basically ensuring that all our freedom of speech are protected. And so Act for America is doing that through our Director of Government Relations. We are the only organization of this size focused on the protection of freedom of speech with a full-time lobbyist on Capitol Hill. We need everybody listening to go to our website, actforamerica.org, and sign up to get our action alerts so we can reach you and alert you when we have a legislation proposed or when there is a hearing in Congress about this issue, that you can call your member of Congress and tell them that you need them to stand up for and defend free speech and do what they need to do to make sure, like organizations like Facebook, that companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Google, and these type of organizations do not monopolize the internet and muzzle our voices.
Brigitte, do you have a couple extra minutes for us, please?
I wish I could. I'm getting ready to go into another interview. I'm sorry.
Brigitte Gable, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Once again, please tell our audience how they can connect with ACT, and please tell them where they can get your book.
People can go to our website, actforamerica.org, actforamerica.org. I encourage you to go there and sign up to get our emails and action alert and stand with us. People also can get the book either via our website, or they can go to Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Walmart, Sam's Club, and every place where fine books are sold.
Brigitte Gable, Act for America. I love your passion and patriotism. I wish every American felt that way about our country the way you do. Take care and God bless.
Take care. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Carol Swain about reasonable or racist Trump policies on the Central American caravan. Don't go away. We will be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. Want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and now broadcast on the AUN TV network in Northern California. Sharon, our next guest is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Our next guest is Daniel Greenfield, a Shellman Journalism Fellow at the Freedom Center, and he is an investigative journalist and writer focusing on radical left and Islamic terrorism. Daniel's original biweekly column appears at Front Page Magazine, and his blog articles regularly appear at Family Security Matters, The Jewish Press, Time of Israel, Act for America, and Right Side News, as well as daily at the Canada Free Press and a number of other outlets. The scope of Daniel's writing covers everything from domestic American politics to creating Islamism to creeping Islamism in Scotland, and how foreign aid makes its way into the hands of terrorists, to white Aborigines in Australia, Islamist imams in Libya, flogging in the Maldives, and the hunt for witches in the Muslim world. Daniel, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's our pleasure, and it's quite a rundown. You really do look after a lot of different topics. Some of these I'd never heard of, so it's interesting to see the variety that you cover. But today we've asked you to come on and talk to us about your article, Muslim Migrants Terrorize a Sleepy German College Town. And then there's a little postscript. One Syrian rapist, 29 crimes. Daniel, this is shocking. Which sleepy little German town are we speaking of, and how does one Syrian rapist commit 29 crimes without getting apprehended?
The town in question is Freiburg. Think of it as a kind of a sleepy German college town that's got about this very small population of a little over 200,000. It's mainly known for having the University of Freiburg, and its name, by the way, means City of Free People. Now, think of these really sleepy college towns in the northwest and the northeast, places where not a whole lot happens, and then suddenly huge numbers of Muslim migrants show up. Now, they show up in major cities like Berlin and Cologne, but they also show up in small areas that are very progressive, but they're absolutely unprepared to cope with the impact. So you have hundreds of these and thousands of these migrants coming in. Some of them are so-called unaccompanied minors, which in theory meant that these were supposed to be underage teens. In practice, you have people who were caught in their 20s and their 30s claiming that they were minors. You have a bizarre case in Germany recently of a man who was in his 30s who was going to class with kids because he was officially a minor, even though if you look at the photos, he's very obviously a good deal older than they are. So now these people show up in the small, sleepy college town, and the assaults start happening, the crime starts happening, drug dealing really takes off. Now, last year there was a really horrible murder of a college student, of a medical student actually, who was actually working on a refugee charity. And this woman was 19 years old. Her name was Maria Battenberger. She was brutally murdered, raped, drowned in the river by one of these refugees. Now, it happened again this year with a brutal gang rape by Syrian refugees of yet another college student. And it's obviously torn this place apart because this is, on the one hand, a very liberal place. It's very progressive. It's mainly a college town. So you've got a lot of faculty there. You've got a lot of students there. On the other hand, these people are being terrorized. This used to be very much a party town also because that comes with being a college town. But these clubs that really cater to college students have had to actually turn away migrants, turn away refugees, actually post signs saying that you have to be able to actually show your papers. If you can't show your papers, you're not allowed inside. So this is very much splitting it apart because it's pitting their beliefs that you have to take in all these migrants against the reality that they're committing horrible assaults on women.
Wow. You know, you're hitting kind of close to home now, Daniel. We are being assaulted even in this country with the idea that we have to have open borders. Is this because they have open borders there? Is that the reason? Because they're not able to investigate or vet or even ask the questions of these folks that are coming into their country?
You're correct. That's exactly the issue. And this is really the bigger picture here because people wonder, why are we letting all these people in? Why just because somebody shows up at the border do we have to process their asylum request? That's the bigger question. And the answer is that we signed on to a UN treaty back in the LBJ administration, which said that we have to accept and process all asylum claims. We don't necessarily have to let these people stay, but we have to let people enter and make asylum requests. This is a big issue. Now, we just signed on to the treaty part of the way in the LBJ administration. The Europeans have signed on to it completely all the way, which means whenever anybody shows up, they absolutely have to let them in. They have to let them stay. They have to go through the process of processing their requests. And this can take years. And even when they've processed their requests and said, no, sorry, you're not eligible for asylum, they basically can't deport them. If somebody claims to be coming from Syria or Iraq and they would be in danger of going back, they can't be deported. So effectively, whether or not their requests are accepted or not, they are there permanently.
That is just scary, Daniel. It's scary because of what is happening there. These are not peaceful people. According to your article, these folks are really quite aggressive in their treatment of folks that are, talk about biting the hand that feeds you, literally. They are going into the refugee camps and the refugees are attacking them. That sounds like what's happening there.
That's exactly what's happening there. So early on, we mentioned this particular rapist had committed 29 crimes before. He was already being investigated last year for a previous sexual assault on a woman. There's another sexual assault before that. And he committed a grand total of 29 crimes in Germany before this one. He was actually due to be arrested right before this for drug trafficking. So basically, these people are coming in, they're claiming asylum, they're committing a whole list of crimes, and they can't be deported. Nothing can be done about them because the Europeans have built this entire refugee system, which was really meant for people fleeing Nazi Germany, people fleeing from communism. It wasn't meant for migrants. And, this is the same situation in the United States where there are people coming in, and they're economic migrants. They're looking for money. They're not actually fleeing political persecution. And these refugee codes, they were meant for people fleeing political persecution. They were meant for people fleeing religious persecution. They were meant for people who would say, I can't practice my religion. I can't be a Christian. I can't be Jewish because of the political system. That's not what these people are.
Wow. Now, they are saying that they are refugees, these ones that are in this caravan coming toward our country. They're saying they're refugees seeking asylum. But this is a really broad interpretation. And what you're describing here is what happens when you get to the broadest of interpretation of what asylum means, because these folks are doing their best to be politically correct here to their own suffering, it seems.
It is. It's very, very insane, and it's very backward. And the whole idea of a refugee is, okay, the government is politically persecuting you. It's saying that because of your religion, your political beliefs, it's going to put you in jail or it's going to kill you. That's not the case here. That's not the case in the United States. It's not the case in Europe. These are economic migrants. In many cases, they claim to be Syrians when they're actually not. They claim to be Iraqis when they're actually not. There are people who are commonly misrepresenting things. And what happens is they take a boat, for example, to Greece. They take a boat from Africa to Greece. They show up in Greece. Greece is a train wreck of a country that's basically completely dysfunctional. They show up there. The border people are there basically working around 4 or 5 hours a day. Then they're off. So if these guys show up when they're on duty, then they give them a piece of paper that says, okay, you're refugees, go somewhere else, because Greece has no ability to actually accommodate these people. If they show up when these guys are not on duty, then they just walk through and they keep on going. The guy who committed the murder in Freiburg last year, the asylum seeker, was actually locked up in Greece for pushing a woman off a cliff. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He claimed to be a minor. So after a year, the Greeks basically decided, okay, we have too many of these guys in prison. Let's release them in prison and tell them to go on to Germany, which is exactly what happened. And he went on to Germany and he murdered a woman. This keeps happening all the time because Europe also has some countries that are completely broken. Spain and Greece are at the top of the list. And these countries, the refugees don't actually want to go there. They want to go to Germany. They want to go to Sweden because they have great welfare systems there. So they just kind of transition through there, and then they head on to Germany. They head on to Sweden. They head on to the UK if they can get in. They head on to France. And then it's Party Central.
Party Central. Oh my goodness, Daniel, this is sounding so familiar to me. It's just frightening to think that Mexico has offered asylum to these folks, and they don't want to be in Mexico. They want to be here, and that's exactly what you're saying. These folks don't want to be in Spain or Greece. They want to be in Germany, where they can get more bang for where they're going. Party Central, as you said. We're talking with Daniel Greenfield, who is a Shellman journalism fellow, a true investigative journalist, about his article, Muslim Migrants Terrorize a Sleepy German College Town. And that's headed our way, it seems like. We'll be right back with Daniel after this break. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch us on the AUN TV network in Northern California. Rick and I will be right back after this message.
Voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Hartman, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect.
How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out. as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and they fall for the right time. It's too late.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to health care or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
Together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Our guest this segment is Daniel Greenfield. He's a Schulman Journalism Fellow at the Freedom Center, and we're discussing an article that he wrote, Muslim Migrants Terrorize a Sleepy German College Town. Daniel, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
Daniel, you're talking about this town, Freiburg, in Germany, a population of about 226,000 people. Foreigners make up 16% of the population. Daniel, you were discussing with Sharon these crimes, these incidents in this town. Is this isolated to Freiburg, Germany, or is the same thing happening across Germany?
It is very much happening across Germany on a much bigger scale. So some people may remember the attacks to New Year's Eve ago in Cologne, which had really the epicenter of it. So they were celebrating the New Year's Eve outside a cathedral in Cologne. This was a big New Year's Eve celebration. It's like Times Square, except with a cathedral instead of a giant crystal ball. You've got fireworks. You've got all the young people coming out there, maybe a bit drunk, and the migrants, the asylum seekers, they also showed up. There were Thousands of assaults on women, thousands.
Wow.
So some of it was groping, some of it was physical, but you had thousands of women being assaulted by huge numbers of these, and they would their tactic was they would group around, they would circle around the woman. There would be 6 or 8 of them around the woman, or maybe even more, and she would actually eventually break away and call for help, and meanwhile they would move on to another woman.
Wow.
These were really packed crowds. The police were able to have a very limited impact.
Where were the men at this time? They were just letting it happen? I mean,
they're leftists.
They're what?
So yes.
They're
leftists, so yes.
They were just letting this. Daniel, is this a clash of culture?
It's a clash of cultures. It's a clash of civilizations. Because remember, these people, these Muslim migrants, they're coming from cultures where unaccompanied women are considered fair game. They're considered basically prostitutes. If they don't have a brother with them, they don't have a father with them, they don't have a husband with them, they're considered really loose targets. And this even comes from the Quran because, for example, the hijab. Why do Muslim women wear the hijab?
Right.
A lot of people don't know this. It's actually in the Quran. It says Muhammad tells his followers to tell their women to cover their faces so that they're not mistaken for loose women and molested. It specifically says so that they're not molested. So the idea was you would have good Muslim women in this encampment, and you would have slave girls. Now, by slave girls, we mean the kind of situation where ISIS was taking sex slaves, who was taking these Yazidi women and abusing them. So that's the idea. When a Muslim woman has her face covered, that means she's a good Muslim woman. Don't touch her. If she's got her face uncovered, if she's got her hair uncovered, then she's fair game because she's a loose woman. So they're coming into this culture where women are just walking around, maybe dressed in skirts and mini skirts. They're dressed in bikinis, in pools. I mean, there's been a long list at this point of sexual assaults on women in swimming pools in Europe, to the point, again, where a lot of countries, they've tried to ban migrants from coming in. There have been these little things that they've written up in Arabic, these little comic books explaining appropriate behavior to them. Just because a woman is dressed in a swimsuit, don't assault her.
Books. That's going to solve the problem. Comic books. I love comic books. That's a joke. That's funny. That's a joke. Daniel, what is Angela Merkel and the German government doing about this?
The short answer is they're not doing a whole lot.
Why?
Originally, when
I know you can't answer that, but everybody hears this is going to just scream out what I just cried out. Why? I mean, why are they letting this happen? Why are they letting their country being destroyed? Hey, Daniel, we're seeing a lot of immigrants come to the United States from these places that you have listed in here, that coming from Germany, Algeria, Moroccans, Somalians, Iraqis, Tunisians. Hey, Daniel, same type of people coming here. I mean, is this happening here also in the United States?
It's definitely happening here. It's been underreported, and we're not seeing the same volume. So you had millions of people flooding into Europe. We haven't had the same kind of volume, and we're a larger country. But these incidents have definitely been happening, and obviously everybody notices the terrorism and the terror plots. But there have been a lot of assaults on women, including by some of the people we took in as refugees. It is a major problem. So recently there was this whole debate about making a special exemption for Iraqis who work as translators for American forces in Iraq, and it made sense to a lot of people. But in practice, when we've taken these people in, there was an entire sexual assault ring of these people who were former translators. So it's very much an issue here. The media tends to sweep it under the rug, but there have been a number of stories like this in the United States where people brought in refugees, and they raped, they killed, they committed assorted crimes. There was actually a major case like that in Colorado that was very quickly swept under the rug. And obviously we have still an ongoing terrorism issue being carried out by people who came here as refugees. There were several attacks in New York like that.
Daniel Greenfield, Daniel Greenfield, we want to thank you for joining us. Since your article came out, how many times have you been called an Islamophobe?
Well, I've been on the list of hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center for quite a while now. Now, they didn't just list me as being a bigot. They said that I was individually a hate group, so I think that's quite a compliment because I'm just one man.
Wow. A hate group of one. Well, that's what happens, Daniel, when you tell the truth and the left doesn't like it. They target you, they call you names. They say all kinds of mean, nasty things about you. But Daniel, I'm so glad you could join us here at Conservative Commandos. So glad you wrote this article. Please tell our audience where they could read your article and follow your work.
Well, the easiest way is to just Google my name. For people who don't want to do that, the easiest way to find my work is to go to frontpagemag.com because I'm with the David Horowitz Freedom Center. I'm a showman journalism fellow there. So if you just go to frontpagemag.com, my articles are right there.
All right. Daniel Greenfield, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care. God bless.
Very much my pleasure.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. On the other side, Sharon and I will be back with more.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to health care or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Just about wraps it up for today. I always enjoy spending this time with you. But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.